This is episode 33 of the Rise Up podcast. We're a morning radio show hosted by Steve, Therese, and Tim on Family Life, a network of stations across New York and Pennsylvania. Our podcast is a weekly conversation that will help you think and grow in your faith. If you haven't already, subscribe today so you don't miss a single episode, and find out more about our show at familylife.org.
Facing a whole new day is a lot easier when you remember that God is in charge. You're listening to Rise Up on Family Life.
9/11. Ooh, what does that mean to you? It means so many things to so many people, and not to gloss over, but the normal conversation or the one that has many people is, where were you on 9/11? Tim, we go to the youngest of the three of us. Never talked to you about this.
Right. Well, yeah, and I realize how different of a thing it is for myself than so many others who I know, because I was literally a first grader. And I was in a small Christian school in upstate New York. And so like this news, it means something very different for the kid than it does for the teachers and the parents. You can feel that as a kid, you know, something's weird, something's wrong. Why are we getting called to the chapel for an announcement right now? And this information was relayed to us in a way that I look back now and I respect how they tried to let us know what was going on without like crushing us with the weight of this really dark reality of the world. And at the same time, honestly, it's so crazy looking back. As a first grader, the thing that stood out to me at that moment was, why can't we go outside for recess today? We couldn't go outside because we still did not know at that point what's safe, where's safe. I mean, of course, we know later that a small town in Pennsylvania is somewhere where there's one of these hijacked planes. So we still didn't know. There was all this uncertainty and wondering, why does this affect me, Mom? And then the next day getting on the bus and just kind of the fear that settles into your little mind when you see kids passing around these scary pictures of fire and flames. And maybe you might remember seeing this one picture that went old school viral, I guess we could say, where they said, look, you can see the devil's face in the smoke coming up from the tower. And I remember that image kind of getting burned into my little mind and thinking like, wow, is this the devil? Is this? And it occurred to me, I never knew a world. I mean, as a first grader, you don't really have a concept of the world before that. To me, it was just, these kind of things happen sometimes. But for a lot of people, it was a paradigm shift. It was, this can happen.
I'm just in awe that you went to school on September 12th. I think with everything that we've gone through with COVID and seeing how fast everything can close down, it just occurred to me that like we had still normal life the day after. There was no option of virtual school, you know, there was no like, we should keep everybody close and safe. And wow, that still perplexes me. But thinking back, I think everything was just, you kind of went about things the next day. I was actually on maternity leave at the time. So I had a toddler, and I remember that morning giving Emily a bath, and we had the Today Show on. And my mom at the time worked at a fire department where they had just done a high-rise drill like the days before. And so the first thing you saw was that there was a fire. And I remember, I don't know if I was texting at the time or just calling my mom and saying, did you see there's a high-rise on fire in New York? And you guys just did this training. And in my mind in that moment, I remember thinking, well, everyone's going to be okay because everyone is always okay.
Right.
And then when the second plane hit, I remember this sinking feeling of a lot of people are not going to be okay. And I think that was where the bottom fell out for me as a very young mom. I had a toddler and another baby who would be born just 4 days later, that I have these very small people entering a world where everything is not always okay. And that was a little bit jarring. Now, I was in radio at the time, but I wasn't on the air because I was on leave. But Steve, you were on the radio, and what an interesting thing to go through on the air.
I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time, and of course we have a TV monitor all the time anyway in the studio, and of course we're an hour behind, so it was about the 9 o'clock in New York. It was 8 o'clock there, but all that happened, and then we hear of all these reports. So you turn on the TV as you're doing your radio show and getting little pieces of information. As you remember back then, there was so much uncertainty, even of the people on the scene. There was so much going on. But you mentioned the second plane hitting. The TV was on and we were on the radio talking. And, I remember I can still see that actually happening as you were talking on the radio. But again, even at that point, a little more certainty, but still so many questions, more questions than answers. So, yeah, that was a strange time, an odd times, a time that it made me realize that anything can happen at any time. But even at the same time, I was in Oklahoma. I wasn't close like you guys were in New York. So it was almost in an odd way, not a disrespectful way, but an odd way. It was like I was almost like watching a movie because
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that I knew, and I still don't at this time that went through that. So yeah, it was just kind of an odd thing to be on the radio and talking about what we were seeing and not really being sure what we were seeing.
Right. And boy, the way we communicate has changed so much in the past 21 years. I remember just nonstop news coverage, and that's what everybody did was just watch TV. I mean, TV was just on for days and days and days, and just news coverage. That was one thing that changed. There were no sitcoms, there were no TV dramas, there were no late night talk shows. I think it was David Letterman was one of the first that came back, and I don't remember how many days that was, but we had finally said, okay, we have to be able to laugh again someday. And that was such a seismic shift. But there was this kind of collective consciousness of every little thing that was going on. And in the midst of that, there were little faith bubbles that began to pop up. In the days after 9/11, there was an understanding collectively that we could talk about God, that we could pray to God, that we could go to God with our questions and concerns. There seemed to be a lot of God. It was okay to pray. It was good to love one another and to serve one another and do those things that are such the basis of the Christian faith. And there was this solidarity. We took this tragedy and we somehow became one body of Americans with this Christian faith kind of woven through it. And then came the division, the division of who did this and who are they and why are they against us?
Yeah.
And then the division between, what people thought was the right way to handle this or the right way to handle that, and so, we kind of went back to being America, this deeply divided place. But boy, for a little bit, it just felt like God was the refuge of this nation.
Just speaking about the communication we use, Therese, I'm just thinking even about the really heart-wrenching audio, the messages you can hear that people did leave their loved ones when they did literally know it would be the last time. And it, just like faith, just like God, it brings you back to what is most important. And for so many, it's those words of love and of saying that. And you find that even obviously in a gigantic tragedy like 9/11, but also in the personal moments where you wonder, where you think, where you maybe even know that it'll be the last time. It has a way of bringing you back to what is most important. And that's remembering why we're here. It's love. It's showing other people God's love.
It brought me back to, remember I mentioned that it seemed like a movie to me. It didn't seem real,
Right.
But at the same time, you want to share respect. So it takes me to Romans 12:15, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. I wasn't necessarily feeling close to the mourning situation as far as knowing someone specifically, but obviously, many people were mourning. You could see it. You could feel it. So it took me back to that. It's like, that's right. Even though I don't feel it necessarily strongly, I am supposed to mourn with those who mourn. So it was a great remembrance of respect in that way.
Yeah. And I think on that day, and even since, so many people have said, why did this happen? And Jesus tells us in his word that you will have trouble. You're going to have trouble in this world. But take heart, I have overcome the world. So it's still true 21 years later, but God.
May the blessings of the Lord be with you in all that you do today. This is Rise Up on Family Life.
We've reached that time of the year where you simultaneously make breakfast and lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
Time for the school lunch. Okay, so what is it that kids want in their sandwich? They did a poll of sandwich fillings. I would have guessed turkey at the top because I feel like, we sell a lot of turkey in America.
Sure.
I feel like our family
Yeah.
buys a lot of turkey. I know turkey is at the heartbeat of Steve's Patunky sandwich.
Yeah, I love turkey.
I don't think any child in the world wants turkey, tuna, and peanut butter, though.
little Stevie.
But then that led me
Little
to
Stevie.
peanut butter and jelly. That's a classic.
Of
And I
course.
thought maybe that's
Absolutely
number one.
my vote.
That came in at number 5.
Oh,
I
please.
know. And I was like,
What's wrong
what?
with kids these days?
I know. Well, I thought, what's going on? Like, how have I missed the mark so much? Number 1 on the sandwich filling list, kids say they want ham.
Okay.
And I was like,
I would not
That's
guess
fine.
that.
that surprised me. And then I thought, wait a second. We're talking about kids and that whole saying, you are what you eat. What kid doesn't want to be a ham, right?
Ham it up,
I grew up on ham, I think.
It's Steve, Therese, and Tim helping you to rise up on Family Life. A friend you can turn to.
We've got our tunes. They go viral sometimes. Those songs, they get picked up and shared around the internet. Love songs sometimes are the ones that get passed around. And I just learned that whales have their own memes too, their own viral tunes.
Oh.
Different love songs that whales sing. They come in and out of style. Sometimes you'll be hearing this one around the Atlantic and this one in the Pacific. But certain ones, and this is no kidding here, that get really popular, whale songs can travel around the world under the ocean up to 9,000 miles. So from one side of the world to the other, whales can be singing the same song that they've just passed from one whale to the next.
Wow.
And now that part is true. And this, I'm still trying to determine if this audio clip, if it's legitimate. It comes from somewhere deep on the internet, but take a listen to this whale song here. Do we think the whales maybe they're rolling to that too? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure if this audio is legitimate or not. We still have to get our fact checkers out on that.
They're morning people because they love mornings and people. It's Rise Up with Steve, Therese, and Tim on Family Life.
I was so confused for just a little bit. Some people would say I'm still there. However, that's not my point. My point is, remember when the word like bad all of a sudden meant good? Remember, it was like, oh, that's bad.
yeah.
And then I was
That's
confused,
bad.
but
Right.
that means good sometimes. Anyway, there's a word that I didn't know this. It's a very simple word, nice. The original word nice, the Latin meant ignorant or unaware.
Oh,
that's how
really?
it started. Nice meant this is way back. I mean, nice, right? Now here's the other one that I didn't know, and I just find this to be fascinating. The word tragedy originally meant goat song. Goat song is what I meant, and so so let me just play a little bit of my favorite tragedy here.
That is nice.
Nice. It's just a little song that I
The nicest thing I've ever heard.
Is that good or is that bad?
That's nice.
Oh, nice. It's a drone.
We hope the rest of your day is just as much fun as this. You're listening to Rise Up on Family Life.
You got to go to the word book.
Dictionary. Gotcha. There it
Exactly.
is. That's what they call that.
Yep. Now, these
Yeah.
things, we are here this morning, as we are most every morning, to amuse you, inspire you, and provoke debate. No, the debate part, not so much, but we may come into this in a fun way in that Merriam-Webster is now, that word book thing got bigger.
Did.
And I feel a little bit like I'm getting older because I didn't even know what, you guys probably know because you're into this kind of thing, but I didn't know what ICYMI.
Oh,
in
well,
case
you
you
missed
missed
it then.
You totally did miss it.
In case you missed it. I didn't know that was the thing. For,
Usually like hashtag.
okay,
and then those letters. Yeah.
So that's now in Merriam-Webster.
Yeah, it's not
so-
equimi. It's an.
Yeah,
it's an,
equimi.
you're right.
ICYMI.
No, you don't pronounce
That's
it.
now the thing that gets me about these Merriam-Webster things. They're words, or I didn't know you could have like a double
phrases.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think those
Yeah.
should be words. I think there is a little bit of controversy around this because some of these things should not be words in the dictionary because they're already separate words that we just use together.
For instance,
well,
what should like
well,
Video
should we-
doorbell, maybe
Video
Right.
one of
doorbell
them.
should not be in the
Like video is a word and so is doorbell. Now, if you made it all one word, video doorbell, then it could be a word in the dictionary. But video space doorbell is not a word. That's a phrase.
Not yet. Not yet. But think about this. Think about this for 1 second. Here's that debate part. There was a time in history where somebody said that about the new word doorbell. They're like, it's just a
Okay.
bell you have on your door. It's not a new word. And now doorbell is all one. So maybe someday we're looking at a future where it's spelled video doorbell. And it's all
So then
one
take out
word.
the space and put it in the dictionary. But it doesn't. I don't think
getting
it should go in the dictionary until the space has been removed. Or if it's hyphenated, that could be a word.
Hyphenated. I think that's our middle ground. I will agree to a
Right.
hyphen.
You guys are so adorkable.
What?
That's a new word.
That's a new
What?
word now. Yeah, it's a kind of a
But
mashup
you
with
using that
adorable
word is
and-
so sus.
What? Is who?
Go to
I'm
the
old again.
dictionary. It's all there now.
Sus. It's enough to make me say yeet.
Thanks for making us part of your morning routine. It's Rise Up with Steve, Therese, and Tim on Family Life.